Hi guys, today we will be unboxing, testing and reviewing the XP Pen Artist 22R Pro. Just kidding, I actually emptied it already. A huge thanks to XP Pen for reaching out and sponsoring this tablet for my review. If you saw my workspace tour that I uploaded a while back, I actually showed you this tablet already, but I didn't talk about it because that's what we're going to do today. At the time of recording this, I've been using this tablet for the past approximately 4.5 months, since late 2019, to thoroughly test and use it in my regular workflow. I'm super excited to show you this huge baby. So let's just get started. The XP Pen Artist 22R Pro comes with a 21.5-inch display at 1080p resolution. It has 20 customizable shortcut keys as well as 2 dial wheels. They're placed on each side of the tablet with an identical layout, so you can use this tablet whether you're right or left-handed. This tablet supports USB-C to USB-C connection, so you can connect it directly and simply to your iMac, MacBook Pro and other Windows computers that support USB-C input. It also supports connection through HDMI and VGA cables, as well as USB-C to USB adaptation and with a power adapter as well. So if you do not have a computer that supports USB-C input, absolutely no worries because you're still covered and have a lot of options. The Artist 22R Pro comes with an anti-glare and anti-scratch pre-applied film with high transparency over the screen. It also comes with a pre-installed stand that allows you to adjust freely between 60 to 90 degrees. The stylus is battery-free and supports up to 60 degrees of tilt function, and you get an additional 8 replacement nibs for your stylus in the package as well. The tablet is compatible with popular drawing software such as Adobe Photoshop, which is the one I always use, as well as Illustrator, Sai, GIMP, Krita, Medibang, Fire Alpaca, Blender and many more. The whole tablet measures 570 by 334.8 by 44.8 millimeters, so it is quite a big tablet. To see all the specs, color profile, response time and more, follow the link in the description to Artist 22R Pro's product page and check it out for yourself. Now let's take a look at the box's content. First and foremost, there is the big beast itself. This is by far not only the biggest but also the heaviest tablet I've owned, with an impressive 6 kilos. And as I mentioned, the stand that comes with the tablet is already installed and ready to use. On the back right side of the tablet, you find the place where all the cables is going to go. You also get a quick setup guide for setting up the tablet, and I really suggest you try and follow it. Just don't be a hero and freestyle the tablet setup. I said it once before, I'm saying again, trust me, just follow the guide. The XP Pen stylus comes in the usual cylinder, where the cap also functions as a vertical stand for your stylus. You also get 8 additional stylus nibs as I mentioned before, so you should have plenty before you run out. And with that note, I've been using it for 4.5 months now and I haven't changed the nib yet. Here's a shot that compares the stylus of the Artist 22R Pro with the one of the XP Pen 15.6 Pro that I reviewed last year. I really like the overall design of the stylus, however the nib is slightly smaller and the button has been redesigned on the Artist 22R Pro stylus. The fact that the nib is smaller is actually a big plus in my book because it now feels more firm and less bouncy compared to the one of XP Pen 15.6 Pro. And as a really nice gesture, XP Pen even gives you a spare stylus should you ever feel the need to forcefully break the one you have. I never broke a stylus before, but I must admit it's nice to have it in case my dog finds it interesting one day. You also get a USB to USB-C converter and a little tablet attachment that you can put on your tablet to hold your stylus. You also get a huge, and I mean a huge bunch of cables shoved into a cardboard box, but don't worry, you won't be needing all of them. It depends on your specific setup. The USB-C is probably, in my opinion, the best setup to go with, but it requires your computer to have an available USB-C in port, which I do not. But I'll return to that later on. First of all, you will need a computer or laptop of any kind to use this tablet. Like most other drawing monitors, it doesn't have its own operating system and really only functions as an additional monitor, which you can draw on, of course. So yes, you will need a computer with Windows 7, 8 or 10 or some kind of Mac computer with OS X 10.10 and higher to use this tablet. I honestly don't know if it works with Linux, or Linux, how do you say it? But you can always write XPpen and ask them. In my opinion, they have excellent customer service. My Artist 22R Pro is set up after the second option shown in the quick guide, with the USB-C plugged into the USB converter, the HDMI cable, and the power adapter. No matter which setup you use, you will need the power adapter. Remember that this thing is huge and it will need its juice. That was really hard to say. Okay, moving on to looking at the driver software. My thoughts on the driver software are actually mostly positive. I find it easy to use in general and I didn't have any trouble setting up the express keys. I'm pretty used to navigating through these programs now though, and in its core I think they're pretty much the same for all tablets. I would still like to see just a single input field for manual shortcuts instead of this mess of checkboxes and things you have to tick on and off, but it's not that bad, you just have to get used to it. But it could be more intuitive. You can also adjust the sensitivity of your stylus, export and import your settings, set up the dial rings, calibrate the monitor, change the color temperature and all the basic stuff you need, it's here. You can also use the soft buttons on the top right corner of the tablets to open a menu, which allows you to adjust things like the brightness, the contrast and the gammas, and so forth. I actually used the export and import feature when I reinstalled this tablet after my previous review, and all of the shortcuts were back and working as they were supposed to in a matter of just seconds. Overall, the software is good and fairly easy to use, especially if you're used to navigating these programs. But if you're completely new to this stuff and this world in general, then there is probably still some room for usability improvement, but it's not a mission impossible. Don't worry. Now that I've showed off the tablet, it's time to show you guys the test I performed on the Artist 22R Pro. The Jitter Test. First, the diagonal line test, also known as the Jitter Test. I explained this test in more depth last time, but basically I'm just testing for jitteriness or wobbly lines, which mostly occurs when you're drawing diagonally. Ooh, diagonally. I performed the test in Photoshop, Krita as well as Medibang. Both Krita and Medibang are free drawing programs. All in all, I think the Artist 22R Pro really performed well on the Jitter Test. I haven't done this much, so I don't have a lot to compare it to. I see there is some wobbliness on the lines in all three programs, even though I used a ruler to draw it out, but I will also say that my ruler does have some texture, so it might partly have occurred because of my ruler, but there is a little bit of wobbliness, but I didn't notice the cursor jitter out in different places like I've experienced in my previous review. The smoothing test. Time for my usual smoothing test. Shortly explained, I'm testing how much smoothing is needed to create smooth and generally nice looking lines without getting too much of a delay on the line caused by high smoothing. Generally, the less smoothing that is required, the better. Unless you're using high smoothing for a specific purpose, of course. I think the Artist 22R Pro performs really well even at 0% in Photoshop. I almost didn't notice the difference between 0% and 5%, which is the normal smoothing level that I work with. Besides Photoshop, I also tested the smoothing in Medibang and Krita. I think Photoshop and Krita performed better, and Medibang required some smoothing at around at least 10 to produce nice looking lines. I generally felt like Medibang was actually struggling a bit with this test. For Krita, I suggest just using the basic or the standard amount of smoothing, and in Photoshop you can go all the way down to 0% if you'd like. The pressure test or the pressure level test. Here I'm testing for what sensitivity setting of the stylus feels most comfortable while still being able to vary one stroke from very thin to very thick. Basically, I'm testing the entire spectrum of pressure levels in one sensitivity setting. I found that the best pressure setting was either the standard setting or the one tick towards being more firm. It allowed me to create more light strokes without needing to press hard at all. I only experienced a weird transition on the lines when I was making very small and rapid lines. It might rather have something to do with the report rate and not the pressure levels. I'm not sure, maybe I was just going too fast. And once again, I performed this test with the same sensitivity settings in Photoshop, Krita and Medibang. I felt like Krita was definitely the winner of this test, but be mindful that there might also be some brush settings and or some built-in sensitivity of the current brush I'm using to take into account. And once again, I think Medibang was acting a little weird and not really picking up on my light strokes. There's also just some weird brush artifacts popping up every now and then. It might be that there are just some Medibang settings I got wrong. I'm not a super user in Medibang, so if you have any experience with this behavior, please share it in the comments and we can try to solve this, if it's solvable. In terms of parallaxing, I only notice it if I bend my arm a lot and draw from an unusual angle than I normally would, which the screen isn't calibrated for my view angle. I have begun to rotate the canvas instead a lot, so I hardly ever notice any parallaxing, to be honest. There is a tiny amount though, however, I will consider this the quote-unquote normal amount, as long as it doesn't get worse towards the edges of the screen or the cursor starts to offset, which it doesn't on this tablet, then I'm really happy. Sometimes you might notice that the cursor is falling behind a bit as if it's delayed, but it usually only happens if I draw really fast. And I think it's more a matter of the report rate or the response time rather than parallaxing. I've calibrated my Artist 22R Pro to show the least parallax from the angle of the stand that I personally enjoy drawing from. Adjust the stand to the position that you're most likely to use most of the time and calibrate the tablet afterwards. It will give you a result with the least parallaxing. So I've been using the XP Pen Artist 22R Pro for a while now in my regular workflow, so I'm going to share my experiences, ups and downs of this tablet for the time I've used it. And meanwhile I'll show you a drawing time-lapse in the background with a bit of real-time drawing as well. This was the first piece that I made on the Artist 22R Pro as the test drawing, and I've used it for many more drawings since then. When I first set up the Artist 22R Pro, the stylus didn't actually respond to the screen immediately, but after restarting my computer and reinstalling the driver, everything worked perfectly. I actually tried putting my old stylus on top of the 22R Pro, and that was being picked up, but it wasn't made for this tablet, so that was a really peculiar experience. After that first incident though, I didn't experience the stylus suddenly not being picked up anymore, and so far I haven't had any problems with the pressure suddenly stopping to work or anything like that either. I had just a few hiccups where it seemed like the express keys didn't quite remember their shortcuts I gave them and kind of defaulted back to, the default. But after minimizing my drawing program and maximizing it again, the shortcuts magically worked again with the correct settings. There were a few times when I experienced, while being zoomed out, that tiny strokes didn't really appear. It was as if the motion of the stylus was so small that the tablet didn't really pick it up. But after adjusting my pressure settings to a more firm one, this problem occurred less frequently. At some point though, I had to draw some freckles, and I wanted to just dab them on with really small circular motions, but they weren't being picked up by the tablet. I had to zoom in a lot so I could make bigger gestures with the stylus in order for them to be picked up properly. It's not a deal breaker, but I wanted to mention it anyway. It's like there's a tiny bit of delay in the tablet's report rate perhaps. It makes it feel less instant, if I can say it like that. But now that I think about it, I actually think all my XP Pen tablets were like this, so I think it's just a general thing. While using the Artist 22R Pro, I actually had less pain in my hands since the stand is so freely adjustable and I can change my position whenever I feel like it. And if you want, you can set the screen all the way up to 90 degrees and use it as an additional monitor when you're not drawing on it. That's pretty handy given you have enough space on your table for it. The fact that it also has 2 spare USB hubs is super nice since I can plug my phone and other stuff right into the tablet and have them on the desk with me. It's especially nice if you don't have a lot of spare USB hubs in your computer when you're using this tablet. I don't think the Artist 22R Pro's reaction time or report rate is as fast as with previous tablets I've tried. It's like there are a few milliseconds of delayed and it's not good at picking up really tiny motions as I explained before, but the fact that the cursor is so precise and there's almost no jitter at all, I think it really makes up for it, but it's up to the individual to be the judge of that. The 3 things I love the most about the 22R Pro are: Number 1, the stand. Having a stand for your tablet can be really crucial for maintaining a healthy work position, especially if you go at it for hours like I tend to do. And the fact that it's included in the price is just a big plus. Number 2, the dial rings. I love these dial rings. Using them to change my brush size has really optimized my workflow so much, because it's so easy to just change it quickly. Since you have 2 of them, you could use the other one to adjust some other things about your brush, like the hardness, transparency, or even switch between your brushes. And lastly, number 3, I love this tablet's size. And can you blame me? I mean, it takes up all of the space on my table currently, but who cares? I can finally use my entire arm when I'm drawing. And I also have so much space for the interface, and I've never felt less cramped in my drawing programs than now. Not to mention that the colors on this tablet are also really pretty, and the clarity is superb. So in conclusion, yes, this is a very solid product. In my previous review of the XP Pen Artist 15.6 Pro, I told you that that was the tablet that would replace my Wacom Cintiq 13 HD. Well, the Artist 22R Pro is the tablet that replaced the tablet that replaced my Cintiq. That was also really hard to say. At the moment, this is my main drawing monitor on my computer. It is big, and I do need to move a lot of stuff out of the way when I need to use it, which I should definitely optimize. But I think it's worth it, and I genuinely enjoy working on the Artist 22R Pro. As a professional artist, I sometimes sit at my desk for hours upon hours upon hours and draw, and it's nice to have a bigger working space now compared to the smaller one I had before. The Artist 22R Pro sells at the time of publishing this video for around $700, and remember, you get the stand and all of the equipment included in this price. Compared to a similar size display tablet from, for instance, Wacom, which sells at everything from $1,700 to $2,500, depending on the specific model, I'd say that $700 is a very reasonable price for a tablet, especially of this quality. Whatever it might lack in fine-tuning and general refinement, I'd say it's worth saving $1,000 for, but I'll let that be up to you yourself to decide, because we have different preferences and budgets, every one of us. I haven't tried a display tablet of this size from Wacom though, so it's really hard to compare them directly. But compared to the previous tablets I've owned and reviewed, I'd happily recommend the Artist 22R Pro, especially if you like big screens, loads of express keys, as well as a freely adjustable stand. If there's one thing I should mention that I would really love for XP Pen to improve on, it's the fine-tuning of the sensitivity and or the report rate. I was at times quite irritated that my tiny strokes weren't being picked up, because I know they would have been on previous tablets I've owned and tried. However, it's not going to change my mind about using this as my main tablet for the time being, but what can I say, I like big screens. So that was it for the review of the XP Pen Artist 22R Pro, and once again a huge thanks to XP Pen for sponsoring this tablet for my review. If you want to read more about the XP Pen Artist 22R Pro or check out the prices, I've put some links in the description below. And as always, if you have feedback for my review form, I'd happily hear it in the comments below. I'm always aiming to make these reviews more informative for you guys. And please leave a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it or found it helpful, and share it with your friends and enemies, and until next time guys, take care. Bye!